Get out of my house, Daniel. I can't live like this anymore. Those were the last words Emily Carter spat at her crippled husband, a man she once swore to love through sickness and health, before walking straight into the arms of his best friend, Ethan, the same man who whispered that love was worth more than loyalty. You're useless, Daniel. I need a real man, she sneered, packing her bags, convinced she was walking toward freedom. But what she didn't know was that Daniel's late father had just signed a will, transferring a $300 million fortune to the son everyone pitied and testing the love everyone doubted. You were supposed to make me happy, Daniel. Not hold me back, she had said, not realizing the universe was already writing a different ending, one where every cruel word, every betrayal, and every secret kiss would echo back with poetic justice. The $300 million inheritance wasn't just money, it was a mirror. A final lesson from a father who wanted his son to see who truly loved him, and who merely loved what he could give. Sign the divorce, Daniel. You've got nothing left, Emily demanded, moments before karma decided otherwise. And when the truth surfaced, that the crippled man she cast aside now owned everything she and Ethan had schemed for, the empire she thought she'd inherit became a monument to her own greed. Viewers, have you ever pushed someone away thinking they had nothing to offer, only to learn they were your greatest blessing? Have you ever seen karma move like clockwork, or realized too late that the one you left behind was your only anchor? Tell me, would you trade love for luxury, knowing it might cost you everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. When Emily threw her husband Daniel out of their home, she thought she was ending a burden. But the night she said, "I can't live with a man who can't walk or provide," she had no idea that man she abandoned would soon inherit $300 million, and that her new husband, Daniel's best friend, was hiding a secret darker than she could ever imagine. The words echoed in Daniel's mind long after she slammed the door. The sound wasn't just the echo of wood against frame. It was finality, a sound that said, "You've failed." His wheelchair stood still in the hallway, a silent witness to a love that had collapsed under the weight of reality. Outside, he could hear her voice, low and trembling as she spoke to someone. Ethan's car engine purred in the driveway. Ethan, his best friend, his partner in every project, every late-night brainstorming session, every victory, and every heartbreak. Now the same man waited outside, headlights slicing through the misty night like judgment. Daniel didn't cry. He simply sat there, still, composed, like a statue carved from disbelief. He'd always believed love could endure anything, but maybe he had mistaken pity for loyalty and comfort for commitment. As her footsteps faded, his mind drifted, a foggy flashback pulling him years back to the night they met. The charity gala shimmered with golden lights, and she had spilled red wine across his navy suit. Her eyes widened, her words tumbling out. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He had smiled, brushing it off. "I don't mind. I like bold entrances." Her laughter, bright and unfiltered, lingered with him that night. She had seemed genuine then, warm, free-spirited, the kind of woman who could turn a room into sunlight. Now, years later, that same warmth had gone cold. He wheeled himself into the living room, the one he'd designed for her. Every detail, from the soft beige walls to the skylight she'd wanted, whispered her. But tonight, the house felt empty. His hand brushed over the sketch pad on the coffee table, his latest unfinished design. He tore the paper slowly, piece by piece. His dreams didn't belong here anymore. Through the window, he saw Ethan step out of the car, hands tucked in pockets, pretending not to look up. Emily approached him, suitcase in hand. For a brief second their eyes met, Ethan's and Daniel's. A silent war of guilt and sorrow. And in that moment, Daniel knew something deep inside. This wasn't betrayal born overnight. It had been growing, quietly, secretly, while he wasn't watching. His voice, quiet but sharp, slipped into the empty air. "Be careful what you steal. Some treasures come with curses." Then, with steady hands, He turned his wheelchair toward the study. There was work to do, something deeper to reclaim. He didn't know what yet, only that he wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Long before the silence, Daniel Carter's life had been filled with laughter, ambition, and light. He used to wake early, before sunrise, sketching blueprints beside the wide kitchen window, sunlight spilling across the pages. The smell of roasted coffee mingled with Emily's perfume as she glided past him, humming, pressing a kiss to his cheek. Back then, their love was young, buoyant, a shared dream. Daniel was building his architectural firm with his best friend, Ethan Moore, a man he'd known since university. They'd studied side by side, Ethan with his charming wit and Daniel with his quiet brilliance. Together, they had sworn to build more than homes, to build legacies. Ethan had always admired Daniel, not just for his talent but for his character. "You've got something money can't buy," he once told him during a rooftop toast after their first successful project. "You build from the heart." Daniel had laughed, clinking his glass. "And you build with numbers. We make a perfect pair." But behind Ethan's laughter there had always been a flicker. Envy disguised as admiration, a shadow Daniel never noticed. Emily came into their lives like sunlight through glass. She believed in Daniel's dreams, pushed him to open his own firm, and when the business grew, so did her taste for designer dresses, charity galas, and whispers of high society. Still, Daniel indulged her. "She deserves beauty," he'd tell himself. "She deserves more than I had growing up." Sometimes when she scrolled through social media, Daniel would catch her pausing on photos of luxury, yachts, mansions, diamonds. "One day," he'd promise gently, "we'll get there." Then came the night that shattered it all. A stormy highway, the road slick and dark. Daniel and Ethan were driving back from a late client meeting. Emily had called minutes before, her voice edged with irritation. "You're always working. You missed dinner again." Daniel sighed, glancing at the phone on the dashboard. "Tell her I'll be home soon," he told Ethan. Ethan reached for the phone, then headlights flared. A truck swerved, screeching tires, shattered glass. Silence. Daniel woke days later in a sterile hospital room. The doctor's voice echoed like thunder. Spinal damage, paralysis from the waist down, uncertain recovery. Emily's face, pale and tearful, hovered above him. She clutched his hand, whispering, "We'll get through this." But something in her eyes faltered when she saw the chair beside his bed. A subtle shift. Pity, not promise. Weeks turned into months. Therapy sessions, slow progress. Ethan visited often, carrying updates from work. "I've got the firm covered," he'd reassure him. But beneath that smile, something else brewed. Exhaustion, temptation, calculation. Daniel didn't see it. He only saw a friend stepping up. Late one evening, as Daniel struggled with his wheelchair by the window, he noticed Emily's reflection. Distant, scrolling through her phone, eyes void of warmth. She looked more at Ethan these days, laughed more, lingered longer. A faint chill brushed Daniel's chest, though he didn't yet understand why. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "Everything's changing, and you're the only one standing still." The morning light spilled through the living room, soft and golden, yet Daniel felt none of its warmth. The once vibrant home now echoed with silence, the kind that hums like regret. The piano Emily used to play gathered dust. Her laughter no longer danced through the halls. He watched her from the kitchen as she stared blankly at her reflection in the microwave, hair still perfect, eyes distant. She had grown quieter since the accident, not gentle quiet, but resentful silence. "You should eat," Daniel said, rolling closer with her favorite breakfast, avocado toast and coffee. He'd learned to make it after the accident. It was one of the few ways he still felt useful. She didn't smile. "I'm not hungry." Her tone was clipped, as though kindness had become a luxury. He nodded slowly, gaze dropping to the uneaten meal. Therapy went well yesterday. The doctor said, Daniel, she interrupted, rubbing her temples. Please, I can't keep doing this. Pretending things are fine. The words landed sharp. Pretending? Her eyes filled with tears she didn't want him to see. You don't understand. Everything's different now. I'm different. You're... She hesitated as if the word itself was a wound. You're not the man I married. Before Daniel could respond, the doorbell rang. Ethan. He stepped in with his usual charm, clean suit, easy grin, and that faint cologne Emily once said reminded her of success. He greeted Daniel warmly, clasping his shoulder. Hey, buddy, you're looking stronger every day. But Daniel caught the subtle glance Ethan gave Emily. Too familiar, too soft. It lasted barely a second, but it stayed with him long after. Ethan dropped off firm documents, explaining updates on projects Daniel could no longer manage. Don't worry, he said. I've got everything under control. You just focus on recovery. Emily stood beside him, nodding absently. Her phone buzzed. She glanced, smiled faintly, then slipped it back into her pocket. Later that afternoon, Daniel rolled into the study and found the phone buzzing again on the counter. A single preview lit the screen. He'll never be the man you need again. Ethan's name. His heart stopped, not from anger, but something colder. Realization. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. The truth pulsed through his veins like ice. He sat in silence, staring out the window at the garden they once planted together, now overgrown, untended. His reflection stared back at him, pale and tired, a man outgrown by his own life. When Emily returned, he said nothing, only whispered to himself, "Be careful what you wish for. Some wishes rot the soul." In the following days, her smiles toward Ethan grew more natural. Her laughter, once shared with Daniel, now belonged to someone else. And in the quiet, Daniel began keeping notes, not out of suspicion, but survival, observations, patterns, dates. He didn't know why he wrote them, only that something told him the truth would need proof. Evening shadows stretched across the house like fingers of dusk. Daniel sat by the wide window, sketching aimlessly. His pencil moved, but every line curved into hesitation. The house creaked, old timbers settling, echoes replacing laughter. Somewhere down the hallway, Emily's voice murmured, a low whisper followed by Ethan's quiet reply. He froze. It wasn't what they said, just how they said it. Softly, carefully, like thieves tiptoeing through trust. A half-finished drawing slid from his lap to the floor. He listened. Then came laughter, hushed but intimate, and the muted clink of wine glasses. The sound cut deeper than any shout. He wheeled himself toward the door, stopped halfway, and turned back. Confrontation would change nothing. He could feel her heart had already left. Instead, he retreated to the study, the room that still obeyed him. On the wall hung an old photograph, his late uncle, Charles Kensington, tall and dignified beside a younger Daniel in dusty overalls. They'd been renovating an abandoned cottage that summer. Charles had insisted they restore it board by board, not hire anyone. Remember this, Charles had said, handing him a chisel. If you want to know a person's worth, see how they treat broken things. Do they mend them or walk away? Back then, Daniel thought the lesson was about architecture. Now, he understood it was about people. He closed his eyes and the flashback deepened. The crackle of a fireplace, the smell of old books. Charles's voice again, weaker this time, from his sick bed. Integrity, Daniel. Keep it even when it costs you. One day it'll repay you in ways money never could. Daniel had promised. But tonight, sitting alone, that promise felt like a chain. Downstairs, a door clicked. Emily's laughter faded into the night. A car engine started. Ethan's. Through the curtains, Daniel glimpsed their silhouettes close. Too close. Her hand brushed Ethan's sleeve as she climbed in. The pencil snapped in Daniel's grasp. He wasn't a man prone to rage. Restraint had always been his armor. But the quiet fury that stirred now was different. Not vengeance, but clarity. The life he'd built was cracking, and only truth could stand when it finally collapsed. He opened a drawer, pulled out a small leather notebook, his ledger of observations, and added a new line. 8:42 p.m. Left with Ethan. Laughter. Then, almost without thinking, he sketched the outline of a key, an ornate design from memory. It belonged to a mahogany chest once kept in his uncle's attic. He hadn't thought of it in years. Inside, Charles had said, were documents of consequence. Could it still be there? He stared at the drawing. For the first time in months, resolve straightened his spine. Tomorrow, he'd find that chest. Not out of greed, but because secrets were destroying everything, and the only way to fight them was with truth of his own. Upstairs, the bedroom light flicked off. Emily had returned, silent, unreadable. Daniel set down his pencil. The war for their marriage had begun, and neither of them yet knew its prize. The next morning arrived brittle and gray. Daniel drove alone in his adapted car, hands steady on the wheel, heart heavy but determined. The long country road unfurled toward the old Kensington estate, a sprawling manor now veiled in ivy and silence. He hadn't been there since the funeral. Inside, dust shimmered through slanted light. He could almost hear his uncle's cough echoing through the halls, smell the pipe tobacco that once lingered near the library. Every room was a memory. Upstairs in the attic, the air grew cold. Beneath a moth-eaten tarp stood the chest he remembered. Dark mahogany, brass corners dulled by time. He ran his fingers across the lid. The keyhole matched the sketch from his notebook. He searched the shelves, overturning old ledgers and yellowed maps until he found the small brass key tucked inside a cracked photo frame, himself and Charles, smiling, covered in paint. The lock turned with a sigh. Inside lay stacks of documents. Property deeds, sealed letters, and one envelope marked, "To my heir, Daniel Carter." His pulse quickened. He unfolded the letter. His uncle's familiar handwriting danced across the page. "If you are reading this, I am gone. My wealth is yours, not as reward, but as trust. Use it with the integrity that drew me to you. You will not need to seek it. It will find you when you are tested. Should you face betrayal, remember, riches reveal, not change, the heart." Daniel's eyes blurred. Betrayal. The word struck too close. He tucked the letter into his jacket. Downstairs, sunlight spilled through cracked windows. As he wheeled toward the door, a memory returned. His uncle, voice frail yet firm, saying, "One day, Daniel, you'll build something no storm can tear apart. But first you must weather one." He understood now. The storm wasn't the accident. It was her. Back home, laughter drifted from the living room. Emily sat beside Ethan, close enough that their knees touched, their voices hushed. She startled when Daniel entered. "You're home early?" "Had to visit an old friend," he said, eyes unreadable. Ethan rose quickly. "I should get going." Their glance, fleeting but electric, told Daniel everything. That night, the house was silent. Emily emerged from the shower, wrapped in a robe, avoiding his gaze. "Ethan says the firm's struggling. You should sell your shares. Let him handle things." Daniel studied her. "And you trust him too?" She hesitated, then forced a smile. "He's capable. You need rest." When she turned away, her reflection in the mirror betrayed her. A flicker of guilt, of fear, of something broken. Later, when she slipped out again, Daniel didn't follow. He didn't need to. Some truths are too loud for denial. He returned to his study, unfolded the letter once more and whispered, "Test me, Uncle. I'll endure." In the darkness beyond, Emily's laughter rose again, mingling with the hum of Ethan's engine. Two paths were diverging, one toward redemption, the other toward ruin, and fate had already chosen its witness. Rain tapped against the windows like a ticking clock, steady, patient. Emily sat on the sofa, phone in hand, waiting. The screen lit up. Ethan, outside. She grabbed her coat, slipped past Daniel's closed study door, and vanished into the night. Inside, Daniel heard the front door hush shut. He didn't move. Over the past weeks, the sound had become familiar, the soft click of departure. Each time he'd pretended not to notice. But pretending was a luxury honesty could no longer afford. He opened a small drawer in his desk. Inside, the letter from Charles lay folded beside a clean envelope. He removed both and began to write, deliberate strokes shaping farewell. Emily, you once asked what love meant to me. It was this, building a home even when foundations cracked. But some homes can't be rebuilt if one heart has already moved out. I release you from promises you no longer wish to keep. He sealed it and placed it atop the desk. His hand lingered on the paper, steady but sad. Then he picked up his phone and called his attorney. Mr. Walsh, it's Daniel Carter. I'll need new living arrangements. Quiet, temporary, and please finalize the Kensington estate transfer. The attorney hesitated. It's nearly complete, Mr. Carter. Once the trust clears, you'll have access to all accounts. Roughly. Daniel cut him off gently. I'm not asking for numbers, just integrity. Handle it with care. Outside, Emily laughed, sharp, careless. Through the rain-blurred window, Daniel saw her dash toward Ethan's car. Their silhouettes merged under an umbrella, the gesture intimate, practiced. Ethan brushed a strand of hair from her face before they disappeared into the wet dark. Daniel turned away. No confrontation, no accusations. Only the quiet dignity of someone who had loved fully and lost completely. He rolled into the hallway, stopping before the framed photograph from their wedding. Her veil caught in sunlight, his eyes bright with promise. With slow precision, he lifted the frame down and set it face down on the table. In the silence that followed, a memory surfaced. Charles's hand on his shoulder, voice calm. When betrayal comes, don't chase it. Stand still, and truth will circle back. Hours passed. Midnight settled heavy across the house. Emily returned, cheeks flushed, perfume unfamiliar. She moved softly, hoping he'd be asleep. Long night? Daniel asked from the shadows. She froze. Ethan needed help with... He raised a hand. You don't owe me stories. For a moment, guilt flickered across her face, then defiance replaced it. You can't keep me here. I won't, he said quietly. She left again, door slamming, footsteps fading into the storm. Daniel exhaled, long and steady. Tomorrow he would go, take nothing but his sketches, his notes, and the memory of vows once true. Outside, thunder rolled, distant, inevitable, like the future drawing near. Morning came pale and fragile, sunlight crawling timidly through thin curtains. Daniel sat by the window, suitcase beside him, the letter to Emily sealed and resting on the desk. The house smelled faintly of coffee and rain, familiar, bittersweet. He'd risen early, careful not to wake her. Every movement was deliberate, folding his sketches, sliding notebooks into his bag, locking away the documents from the chest. There was nothing left he wished to take, not even the wedding ring, which he placed gently beside her pillow. Outside, a car waited. Mr. Walsh had arranged everything, a modest apartment near the city's edge, quiet, unassuming. A new beginning shaped not by wealth or love, but solitude. As Daniel rolled toward the front door, a low creak behind him made him pause. Emily stood in her robe, hair tousled, eyes heavy with the exhaustion of secrets. You're leaving? She whispered. Yes. Just like that? He turned. There's nothing left to say. Her lips parted, searching for words that might soften the moment, but the silence between them had grown too wide to cross. Where will you go? Somewhere honest. He reached for the doorknob. She took a step forward, hand half extended, then let it fall. He didn't look back. The car door shut with a soft finality. As the driver pulled away, Emily watched from the doorway, arms folded, unsure if the chill she felt was regret or relief. By noon, Ethan arrived, his grin bright, reckless. "He's gone?" She nodded, voice small. "He left me." "No," Ethan said, stepping close, cupping her chin. "He freed you. Now we can live." He kissed her, and for a heartbeat she surrendered. But even as his arms encircled her, she felt something missing, something hollow in the warmth. Love, she realized, didn't bloom in shadows, yet she smiled anyway, convincing herself it was enough. Later that afternoon, a courier arrived with a brown envelope. Ethan signed for it absently, tossed it onto the coffee table, and poured 2 glasses of wine. Emily opened it distractedly, then froze. Inside, embossed on heavy paper, was a notice from the Kensington Estate Trust. Beneficiary, Daniel Carter. Transfer of holdings complete. Estate and assets now in full possession. Her eyes widened. "Ethan?" He leaned closer, reading, face paling. The figures listed on the attached document were staggering. "You told me he had nothing," he muttered. "That's what he said. He never told me." They exchanged a glance, equal parts envy and disbelief. Emily sank into the sofa, heart pounding. Somewhere out there, Daniel, broken, betrayed, alone, had just become one of the wealthiest men in the city, and she had walked away. Outside, clouds broke apart, sunlight spilling across the wet streets. Somewhere in that quiet glow, Daniel breathed easier, unaware of the storm now brewing behind him. Daniel's new apartment sat on the 12th floor of a quiet building overlooking the river. Sparse, neat, and filled with morning light, it was a world away from the home he'd left behind. The first few nights were uneasy, haunted by phantom echoes of laughter, the faint clink of Emily's bracelets, the smell of her perfume in corners of memory. But with each sunrise, the ache softened. He filled his hours sketching again, buildings, faces, dreams unspoken. Mr. Walsh visited often, bringing news of the estate transfer. "Your father wanted you to live, Daniel," the old lawyer said gently. "Not just survive." Daniel nodded, though he said little. His father's intentions, once a distant mystery, now pulsed in his heart like a quiet drumbeat. Charles had left him more than money. He'd left him a test of mercy. Across town, Emily stood before the mirror, wearing silk Ethan had bought from the city's most expensive boutique. The diamond bracelet glimmered on her wrist, yet her eyes, ringed with sleeplessness, betrayed unrest. Ethan noticed it too. "You're still thinking about him," he said, voice taut with irritation. She turned sharply. "I'm thinking about us. About what we could have had if we'd known." His jaw clenched. "Don't blame me. You're the one who pushed him out. And you followed." She shot back, bitterness sharpening her tone. For a moment, silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stepped aside, answering in a low voice. Emily watched him, suspicion flickering. In the weeks since Daniel's departure, Ethan had grown secretive, disappearing for hours, taking hushed calls, locking his phone. The charm that once thrilled her now felt like a mask. When he hung up, she asked, "Who was that?" "Business," he replied curtly, brushing past her. "Business or betrayal?" He stopped mid-step, turned slowly. "Careful, Emily." She folded her arms. "You used me to get him out. Now you're using his money to buy your freedom. Don't think I don't see it." Ethan's expression darkened, but before he could speak, a knock sounded at the door. Emily opened it to find a woman holding a briefcase. "Good afternoon," the stranger said with a polite smile. "I'm from Kensington Estate Trust. I'm here regarding an additional clause in Mr. Charles Carter's will." Emily's pulse quickened. "Clause?" "Yes," the woman said, opening the file. "A personal fund, intended for the individual Daniel Carter names in his letter of gratitude. Ethan frowned. Letter of gratitude? The woman nodded. Yes, it's a tradition. Mr. Carter instructed his heir to name one person who showed him true kindness before the inheritance. That person will receive a trust of $10 million. Emily's breath caught. Her gaze darted to Ethan. He looked back, stunned. And somewhere in the city, Daniel sealed an envelope, pen trembling as he wrote the name. Not hers. The morning fog drifted lazily over the river as Daniel sealed the envelope. His handwriting, steady, deliberate, spelled the name with quiet conviction. Mr. Walsh. He paused, fingers tracing the paper, remembering every kindness the old man had shown. When his father's illness had grown unbearable, Walsh was the one who stayed. When Emily's impatience deepened into cruelty, Walsh was the one who encouraged him to endure, not with bitterness, but with grace. This isn't about money, Daniel murmured. It's about faith. He placed the letter in the outgoing mail tray, exhaled, and let the weight lift from his shoulders. Somewhere deep inside, for the first time in years, he felt free. Across town, Emily paced the living room, phone clutched in her hand, nerves fraying. It had been 3 days since the woman from Kensington Estate Trust visited. 3 days of waiting, wondering, obsessing. Ethan sat on the couch, tie loosened, eyes fixed on nothing. You think he'll name you? Why not? Emily snapped. I was his wife. You were his wife. You also left him. Don't pretend he didn't see that. Her glare cut sharp. And you think he'll name you? The man who whispered in his wife's ear? Ethan smirked bitterly. Maybe he'll name neither of us. Maybe that's what we deserve. The doorbell rang before either could reply. Emily froze. Ethan's heart thudded once, hard. Slowly, she crossed the room and opened the door. A courier stood outside holding a slim envelope. Delivery for Miss Emily Carter. Her breath caught at the sight of the handwriting. Daniel's. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet. Emily. When love turns to pride, both hearts lose. You were my dream once, before the world grew loud. I leave you no blame, only distance, and the hope that someday you'll understand what real love endures. Be kind to yourself, that is all I wish for you. Daniel. No mention of the trust, no second chance, just closure. Her vision blurred. She sank onto the sofa, letter trembling in her grasp. He didn't choose me. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then who? Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A message from Kensington Estate Trust. Confirmation. Beneficiary of the Gratitude Trust. Mr. Thomas Walsh. Ethan cursed under his breath, pacing. The old lawyer, are you kidding me? Emily stared blankly ahead, voice cracking. He never wanted revenge. He wanted peace. Ethan spun toward her. Peace doesn't pay rent. Something in his tone snapped what little restraint she had left. We ruined him, Ethan, and he still chose forgiveness. What did we get? Nothing. He stepped forward, eyes cold. Speak for yourself. The words chilled her. What are you planning? Ethan's silence was the only answer. As night crept through the window, Emily realized the truth. She hadn't lost Daniel to wealth. She'd lost herself to greed. And Ethan? He'd just decided to make one last desperate move. Rain whispered against the windows of the penthouse Emily once dreamed of sharing with Daniel. Tonight its rhythm was no lullaby, just a reminder of how far she'd fallen. She sat alone on the couch, Daniel's letter open on her lap, words blurring beneath her tears. In the kitchen, Ethan rummaged through drawers, muttering curses under his breath. His shirt hung half-buttoned, tie askew, eyes wild. There's still time, he said suddenly. We'll appeal. We'll claim part of the trust. Say he manipulated the will. You were his wife. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. No. I was his lesson. Ethan slammed a drawer shut. You think this is over? I won't live broke. Not after everything I've done. Her head lifted, fear dawning. Ethan, what did you do? He froze. Then slowly he turned toward her, jaw tightening. You think his money just landed in his lap? That inheritance should have been mine. She blinked. Yours? He stepped closer, voice low, bitter. I worked for Charles, his assistant, his errand boy. He promised me a cut when Daniel took over. Then your crippled husband called me a parasite. So yes, Emily, I planned. I waited. I whispered. You just made it easy. The words hit her like a slap. Every stolen kiss, every urgent plan to escape. It had never been love. She was just another pawn. Ethan reached for his coat. I'm going to him. He'll listen now. He'll pay. Emily stood quickly. Ethan, don't. He ignored her, storming out. The door slammed. The silence afterward felt like judgment. Across the city, Daniel sat by his window, watching lights shimmer across the river. Mr. Walsh's voice echoed in his mind. Forgiveness doesn't excuse Daniel. It frees. A knock startled him. He wheeled toward the door, expecting Walsh. Instead, Ethan stood there, wet, trembling, eyes burning with desperation. Daniel, he began, forcing a smile. We need to talk. Daniel said nothing, only gestured for him to step in. Ethan's mask cracked. You owe me. After everything. I helped her leave you. You'd still be trapped if it weren't for me. Daniel's gaze softened, not with pity but clarity. You think betrayal earns reward? Ethan's fists shook. You have everything. I have nothing. Daniel leaned forward. You still have a choice. Walk away. Ethan's breath hitched. The storm outside cracked, thunder rumbling like an omen. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Ethan's shoulders sagged, rage bleeding into exhaustion. He turned, muttered something Daniel couldn't catch, and disappeared into the rain. By dawn, the news broke. A car found by the river, engine running, driver gone. Emily read the headline, tears falling soundlessly. For the first time, she prayed, not for wealth, not for love, but for forgiveness she might never receive. Meanwhile, Daniel opened a new sketchbook. On the first page, he drew 3 figures, one standing, one kneeling, one vanishing into mist. Below it, he wrote, Some inherit money, others inherit mercy. And as the city stirred to life, Daniel finally felt what his father had wanted all along, peace, honest and earned.